Hello readers, I'm the Avid reader and today we're reviewing Opening Atlantis, the first volume in the Atlantis Trilogy. So this book is made up of 3 novellas. The first novella takes place in the 15th century, the second novella takes place in the 17th century, and the third novella takes place in the 18th century. The plot of this novel basically is that imagine that if the American East Coast was its own continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So from the states of Maine down to Florida, that's the Atlantis island, while the rest of the American continent is known as Terra Nova. And the first part of this book starts out in 1452. And you get the perspectives of the Radcliffe family. So you've got the patriarch, who is called Edward Radcliffe. He's at a bar and he meets a Breton called Kersosson, who's a fishing captain like him. He basically makes a deal. Okay, on your next fishing trip, you give me 1/3 of your fish and I'm gonna show you this amazing place with a lot of fish. Something else that's amazing. And Edward Radcliffe agrees. Kersosson and the Radcliffes go over to this place. They see that there are many fish here. There are big fish. Then they discover a new island. They see these new birds they call honkers, and the fauna is quite different from the one in England and in Europe. One of the crew of Radcliffe goes to kill that bird easily. It's a stupid bird who's never met a human, so it lets you kill it if you hit it once hard. But the person who goes to kill it gets suddenly attacked by a big red eagle and gets killed. Afterwards, you have Edward Radcliffe, who returns to England and he convinces a bunch of people there in Hastings to start up a colony with him called New Hastings in Atlantis. He gets a few priests to come along with him also. The local lord in England doesn't really care what he's going to do. There's gonna be trade between Atlantis and England anyways. Edward sets up his colony. He has 2 sons, Henry and Richard. Henry is a fisherman, so he just travels with his boat. And then you've got his other son Richard, who explores the forest in Atlantis. There are some other colonies set up by the English, set up by the Basque, so the Spanish, and set up by the Bretons, so the French. So you've got New Hastings, then you've got Cosquer, another English town that has been set up. Freetown proposes that they should attack Cosquer and conquer it together, but Radcliffe refuses and he basically tells everyone, okay, anyone that attacks another village, I'm gonna defend that village against you. And while in Atlantis, they find out that the War of the Roses has broken out, and in 1470, someone called the Earl of Warwick arrives with a bunch of soldiers, and he's going to be in exile in Atlantis, and he basically sets up New Hastings as his own personal little dictatorship. Of course, the people who are there have been living free for 15-20 years. They don't like this. Eventually, the Earl of Warwick decides that he's gonna tax them. And they don't like that. So when they come to tax Edward Radcliffe, his son kills the leader of the troops who's come to collect. This causes the other ones to chase them, and one of them goes and kills Edward Radcliffe. And this starts out a civil war in Atlantis, where you have the loyalists loyal to the Earl of Warwick, and then you have the Atlanteans who want to be independent. It's kind of a guerrilla warfare. And you have the final battle where the soldiers have superior armors to the locals, but you have Henry who comes up with his ship who bombs the soldiers, and you have Richard's people who attack them. The soldiers are slaughtered and those who surrender are spared, but the Earl of Warwick is personally killed by Richard. Part 2 is 200 years later, around in the 1660s. You get to see that the Radcliffe dynasty has many family members, distant cousins. And of those cousins, you've got William Radcliffe, who's an honest merchant. Then you've got Red Rodney Radcliffe, who's a pirate captain. William Radcliffe hates pirates, including his cousin. He finds some Atlanteans who are going to ally themselves with the English and the Dutch to fight the pirates who reside in Avalon. First you have a battle on the seas between the pirates and the English and Dutch and Atlanteans, and the pirates use fire ships, so a bunch of English ships start burning. You have a second battle where the pirates are forced to retreat to Avalon. This is when the English, Dutch and Atlanteans decide to press on, so they come to Avalon and they launch an invading force there. Red Rodney has forced himself and the other captains to align themselves to defend Avalon. They fail. You have the regular Atlanteans who land. They start killing the pirates. You have a local battle there. Red Rodney Radcliffe has a personal battle with his cousin William and loses and gets killed. His daughter Ethel is angry, but William decides to spare her. Although we learn later on that 20 years after that, she comes along and kills William, and she gets hanged herself. So the pirate city has been destroyed, and been incorporated into English Atlantis. Part 3 is Nouveau Redon and happens in the 1760s, and you have a war between on one side the English and on the other side the Spanish and French, and this is because of a war where you have the French and Spanish who are attacking Germany and the English side with Germany, so it's basically a war between Protestants and Catholics. And on one side you have Victor Radcliffe, who aligns himself with the English, and on the other side you have Roland Kersauson, so a descendant of François Kersauson, who's aligned himself with the French. The first battle between the French and the English, the French win, so the English commander gets killed. But then Victor Radcliffe proposes to his English commander, okay, I'm gonna create a separate party to raid into French and Spanish Atlantis. The English commander agrees, so Victor Radcliffe does so and starts burning villages in Spanish and French Atlantis, which distracts Kersauson. He wants to go down in Spanish Atlantis to stop them, but the Spanish first denied them and then they changed their mind, so he's a little annoyed at the Spanish. And in the coming battles, the English beat the French. French commander gets killed in the process. But then you have a battle where you have Kersauson, who's on a creek with his soldiers, and he gets ambushed by Victor Radcliffe and his soldiers. A lot of them get killed, and the French retreat to the fort of Nouveau Redon, and the English besiege this place. The problem is the French have a lot of food there, and they have a natural water spring that gives them basically infinite amount of water. So the English commander tells Victor Radcliffe, you know, we can just blow up the water under them. We build a tunnel and then we put some explosives, then they lose their spring. Engineers construct a tunnel, the French don't realize what's happening until it's too late, and then the spring is blown up open and the French lose all their water in a few minutes. And in a desperate attempt to win the war, Roland Kersauson storms out of the fort with his soldiers to kill the Englishmen, but the English have dug trenches, so they have the defensive advantage, and the French get slaughtered basically. And a lot of Englishmen also get killed, but it's mainly Frenchmen. Kersauson is so ecstatic in the battle that he's been wounded but hasn't really noticed. He gets an opportunity by Victor Radcliffe to surrender, and Kersauson continues to fight. So the sergeant of Victor Radcliffe, who's called Blaise, he's a black guy, shoots Roland Kersauson, and then the French surrender. And another interesting aspect with this novella is that it starts out with Victor Radcliffe being in the woods, and he meets 3 runaway slaves, 2 who are from Terra Nova and a black guy. The black guy is called Blaise. Blaise and Victor stick together. They developed a good friendship. They eventually have a slave uprising in Spanish Atlantis. Blaise is a free man in English Atlantis in the north of Atlantis. And after the final battle, Victor Radcliffe finds out the terms of the peace. The French are giving up their territory in Atlantis so that it's being combined with the English territory in Atlantis. The Spanish have to give some concessions. The French also lose some land in Terra Nova. And that's the story. So how would I rate opening Atlantis? I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. This may be my favorite Harry Turtledove book so far. It's not as good necessarily as Lest Darkness Fall, but it's still quite close. It's an amazing read. It's maybe because of the format here, because you have 500 pages of story, but you have 3 different stories in this book, 3 different novellas. First you get a story in the 15th century, then you get a story in the 17th century, and then in the 18th century. That's maybe why it's so interesting. And one cool aspect of this book is, for example, the animals in Atlantis, which is a little horrifying when you think about it. You got those eagles that they have to hunt to extinction so they stop killing the humans. So you have some very weird fauna in this book and in this island. This you could maybe say is an allegory to how the English settled the United States in the 1500s, 1600s. So you want to understand how the English settled the United States? This could be a pretty good allegory. And I like the characters here. It's mostly a bunch of Radcliffe's perspectives. You get the perspective from Kersauson. So 6 different perspectives, all of them amazing, I'd say. The first part is 200 pages, second part is 100 pages, and third part is 200 pages. An amazing read overall. All of the novellas are in here. So if you want to read an amazing novel by Harry Turtledove, I would definitely recommend Opening Atlantis. And if you want to know another amazing alternative history book, then I would recommend you to check out my book review of Lest Darkness Fall, written by S. Prague de Camp. This is the author that inspired Harry Turtledove, and it's even a little better than Opening Atlantis. Anyways, I'm the Avid Reader, and I will see you readers next time.